Welcome to my program, Golden Years with Craig, 88.7, 90.3 Radio Northern Beaches, the voice of the Northern Beaches of Sydney, Australia. My very special guest today is Mel Morrow.
Well, that was a lovely interview. I enjoyed every moment of it. You haven't changed a bit in 61 years since I first walked into a classroom, and there you were. And I'm sure the listeners enjoyed it greatly. Radio, what is it?
Radio Northern Beaches.
Radio Northern Beaches.
88.7, 90.3. We're having our 40th year anniversary this coming year, 2024. And I'm in charge of the celebration, so I think we better start by wishing them all the best for 40 continuous years.
40 continuous years is wonderful, and I hope all the people on the beach are now sort of limbering up and turning up the volume to listen to yet another golden story.
Golden years. Now, Mel, this is a book that's been coming a long, long time. It has been in the works a long, long time. I confess, Diary of an Australian Pope, and I've got a few issues with it.
Good.
But let's just go to how long it's been cooking.
Yep. Some questions have simple answers. This one doesn't. So pour yourself a cup of tea. I suppose I'd say a lot of it is distilled over 47 years of teaching, because I've had two parallel careers, as you know.
Yeah.
I've been an English teacher and housemaster in Australia, in France and in England. And so as a result, I've met lots of priests, Jesuits largely, and I also lived in Rome for 5 months, and we might talk about that later.
Yes.
So all that is background, but the even longer answer to your short question is that I wrote a play called Pope to Pope.
Yes.
And I'd invented this Australian Pope. And somehow or other, I thought, this guy is really interesting because he seems to have a voice of his own. And I'm now 81, so, I'm dead, basically, in theatre in Australia. When you get old, like 30, you're finished. So I thought, well, I'll start if I'm finished. And I thought, but how? Writing a novel, I've always been scared of it.
Really? Scared?
Yeah, I'm an English teacher. I can write a sentence, sort of. But novel I was scared of because I didn't know the form. And then when I thought, well, look, this character, I really like him and I have no idea what he's going to say next. And then I thought, Shazam, a diary. And that means each day I can write a diary entry and however I feel or he feels. And that was easy, and it was from then on, it took me about a year, but it was fantastic because, as I say, that very interesting Pope has said a lot of things, some of which may well have disturbed you, young Craig.
Well, I got disturbed when it was set in Wollongong because I come from Wollongong and you're casting aspersions, I think, on this wonderful little coastal town.
You're only 100% wrong. I love Wollongong. It's my favourite city outside Sydney because they put on my musicals.
Right.
And I used to go down there for rehearsals and then during the season. And it's the only city I know that's got a fabulous beach at the end of the main road.
Beautiful.
And North Beach is particularly wonderful. So, wrong again, young Craig.
I've always been wrong.
I'm enjoying this interview, mate. And sit up straight, I'm speaking.
So, just the title, I confess, Diary of an Australian Pope. Mario, huh? Italian, yes, set beautifully out of Wollongong, is it?
Well, I know quite a few people who are called Mario and who come from that background, but I thought it was terrific to have the son of an immigrant who built himself up in Wollongong, literally built himself up. He was a builder. And then gradually, well, I don't want to give too much of the story away,
Sure. Yeah,
but gradually his son became a priest, which he thought was a total waste of time, and sort of running away from life. And by a series of extraordinary accidents, as believe me can happen in institutions like churches or schools, or indeed Parliament, this guy finishes up getting promoted and promoted and promoted. And as you might have gathered from the title, finishes up Wollongong and Australia's first Pope.
It is an extraordinary concept to think about that. And he's very down to earth, isn't he? I've read from the reviews, very down to earth.
Well, the Monsignors, or whatever they are, the bishops, cardinals and the curia called him Pope Vegemite the first and last. He's meant to be a seat warmer, sit there, shut up, sign things, go around the world, bless people, and then die, and then we'll get a proper Pope. And unfortunately, well, I think the readers will just have to enjoy what happens next. But Wollongong boys, beware, beware. Talk about unpredictable.
Well, I noticed from the reviews that he has a bit of a thing about the alcohols, which takes me back to Riverview, and upstairs there they were, all the Jesuits at night, partaking of a little bit of alcohol, we heard. Rumours in the...
It may or may not have happened. I tend to regard alcohol as sacramental and it shouldn't be abused, but the sacrament should be received frequently.
Frequently. At least daily.
Oh, yes.
And look, he's got a few interesting associates, hasn't he? The Swiss masseur sounds like a likely sort of person to have around constantly.
Well, there are Swiss guards, and it's actually based on half a true story in the Vatican.
Okay.
Best I don't tell the story, but certainly, shall we say, such things have happened. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is that when you've got the most powerful man in the Catholic Church and a 21-year-old, and you ask yourself, hang on, who's running this friendship? Who's in charge? And the Pope likes him a lot because he's just frank and just tells the truth. And all around him, a whole lot of men in frocks telling him what to do and all. And here's this highly intelligent, very good-looking lad whose girlfriend's back home, and they've been together for a couple of years. And this guy just tells the Pope, well, this is what we do. And it's so refreshing for our Pope.
Right, to get this perspective.
Yeah, indeed, yeah.
So I suppose there's a lot of yes men around.
Only about 99%. Yes, cardinals, yes, bishops.
That's a good idea.
Yes, monsignors, yeah.
And seriously for a second, Mel, this must be a problem for any head of state like a Pope, that he's got all these people surrounding him and who want to say, yes, that's a great idea. I mean, I don't think there's too many people who are coming up with alternative views, are there?
Well, the problem with this Wollongong Pope is he's decided he's not going to just warm the seat.
Right.
And he also, one of the reasons I really like him is I love the concept of a Pope who allows himself to doubt. And then the more he doubts, the more he talks to himself. And that produces conflict, and conflict produces good novels. So I really like him because he's honest and he tells it like he feels it.
Yeah. Well, I had this conversation with a friend of mine yesterday about one's second voice and how you've got the two sides always talking at you. I don't know whether this is personal to me, but there's the good side and there's the negative side. And the negative side's always jumping in and disturbing the good side that wants to lead a good life and do sorts of things. But this negative side is always sort of gnawing away at him.
I think you've described not just both our lives, but I think everybody experiences this. But it's a matter of sometimes you've got to keep up appearances, and popes aren't supposed to be going around the place saying, well, I'm not sure that makes any sense. But he's thinking that. And he's got his allies, but basically the Curia, which means all the cardinals and people who run the public service of the Catholic Church, what they want is steady as she goes, don't rock the boat, do as you're told, and don't cause trouble.
Right. And it's set in such a brilliant time, isn't it, where we're thinking about...
Accidentally. I mean, I didn't intend it for that, but accidentally, it could be set in the next 2, 3, 4 years, even more recently.
Yeah.
And so I think it has a relevance.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that.
Yeah. I mean, there's the three, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, all male. Tell me about this. Couldn't we squeeze a female in there somewhere?
That's what he starts thinking, and you're not supposed to think that in the church, let alone think it as the Pope. But the church has changed greatly, the Catholic Church. And look, now it seems to me there is a progressive, scholastic, intellectual, intelligent approach to dogma and so forth. And there's also the legal approach of the people who say, look, they're the rules. You belong to a club, you wear a tie. And I'm not sure Jesus ever said that, although maybe I missed that bit in the Bible. But they're two very different approaches. And certainly for the last 20 years or so, the young people who've been in Catholic schools and received an excellent education, they've become very liberated in going, well, yeah, that makes sense. And then, well, no, I don't think I believe in that. And the parking police or the tax department, the Curia, the cardinals are saying, yeah, we don't run it like that. You've got to do exactly as you're told. And they're going, oh, really?
I've been going lately to church on Sundays, and I look around, I sit at the back and I look around, and they're so old, so ancient,
Except us.
Except us. We're young.
And largely feminine as well. 70%, I'd say.
Yeah, in this parish, Edgecliff, I'd say, probably 70. There are some males, and there are a few young people, and they're more of Asian descent than... And so I'm thinking to myself, this is okay, but how do we engage these younger people that you're talking about? They're just out there somewhere. They're not engaged. They might be thinking, considering it. So is this something that exercises your mind more?
Well, all I can tell you is this Pope is a Pope who listens.
Right.
And there's a section where he meets some Papua New Guinea young people, and he's completely knocked out by them,
right.
by their faith, by their actions, by their honesty.
Right.
So look, there's always got to be hope, but my Australian Pope sometimes gets the timing a teeny bit wrong.
Does he jump out of the car and sort of go and shaking hands and things?
Again, I'm not going to give too much away because what he does, you can never predict.
Right.
And he's not just a rebel running around the place saying this is all a load of cobblers. He actually has some extremely good ideas and one or two very good conservative ideas, I think.
Right.
So
Mel, we said as we sat down, might be useful just to give us the flavour of the book and what it's like. If you read a little section from the beginning, just to give my listeners a taste of how they're going to be entering into this book. Yeah. So if you'd mind using those.
Happy to do so. Well, it's...
Give it a big plug.
A plug? Oh, is that allowable on the show?
It is.
Heavens above. God, I have to pay him a lot afterwards. The cover says faith, corruption, sex, blackmail, just for starters. I Confess, Diary of an Australian Pope by Melvyn Morrow on Amazon.com.au.
Available from the 10th, I understand.
It's now available, ready to go. So This is the opening chapter, and it'll give you a flavour of both the style and the justification.
Okay, thanks.
And so to something I've never before done in my life. Keep a diary. Wrong. It's not at all like that. A sudden whim, a bright idea. Oh no, far from it. I've been knowingly avoiding this all my life because deep in what's left of my heart, I know what a volcano of fear, confusion, hatred, love, hypocrisy, struggle, and jagged truth will explode over my carefully disguised persona. Once I start, I know precisely what this will become. My CV of shame and confusion, a map of my soul, the hollow, resounding echo of my shallowness, the catalogue of my failures, the unpacking of my emptiness, and the relief of the saying, the naming, the acceptance, and crazy as it sounds, the gratitude. Even crazier, this morning in my chaotic mind, I had the original thought that in this world not too many people get to become Pope. And from a few months' brief experience, I have an inkling of what it's like to be one. Well, to date. I don't recommend it. So it might be quite revelatory to myself to explore what it feels like. Well, at least what this Pope feels like. Who knows what I might find out? I do. And then he goes on to say, and Dad, I'm writing this personally to you because, and you've got to read on to know the because, but there are big reasons why he's writing it. But then fathers and sons, not unknown that occasionally there can be the odd difference.
What can I say to that? Absolutely. I think of my own experience. Yeah. Totally.
So, and this is his way of saying to his father, you always thought I was second-rate and a loser, and now the second-rate loser's a Pope, and maybe you were right, I'm a second-rate loser Pope. So there's a lot going on there.
Oh, there is a lot going on there, Mel.
And I've enjoyed writing every single day of it.
Okay, so let's go back to planning to do it.
Yep.
Right? You fell in love with this Pope who you'd written a play about.
Yes.
And how did you come upon the diary thing? What was the... I know you explained that you were scared of writing a novel, and
I didn't know the structure. Right. I don't know where it came from, but wherever it came from, I'm grateful because of its obvious permission to show the many, many sides of a person. But I can't answer that because I don't know.
This is what confounds me about you, Mel, because, I know you write every day and how you come up with these creative devices to enter into something. That's quite amazing. And then once you've decided, you're completely committed to that, aren't you? I mean, you were writing constantly.
I would describe it as being released into what I'm writing.
Right.
And at the moment, I'm juggling a couple of ideas and I can't release myself into them. I think they're very, very good ideas for novels, because I'm a novelist now, you see. Talk about delusions of grandeur. But I know the ideas are good, but I can't work out the structure. So I just have to keep thinking, keep walking, and keep hoping. But it'll happen.
Right. And when you're doing that process, you're writing things down, or are you just contemplating and making notes?
As we've discussed, I've never been much of a sportsman. I was a rugby referee, but I'm pretty clueless when it comes to catching balls and things. But I used to walk about 8 to 10k a day, but now that I'm 81, I've cut it down to about 4 to 6. And what I do is at the beginning, I listen to podcasts, and not least of my son Melvyn Morrow on ABC every Sunday morning. Don't miss it. But I plan something. I go, here's a problem. How am I going to get this character out of this? Now, I'll listen to Jules, or I'll listen to Geraldine Doog, and might listen to an opera or something. And then I take out the earplugs with about 1K to go.
Really?
And something happened. I know it sounds nutty.
No.
But something happens, and the closer I get to home, suddenly things fit in, and I think, wow, can I have some more of this Kickapoo joy juice?
And do you come in and sit down at that point?
No. Once I know, now I come in and pour a very big Negroni, which is also very good for writers. Well, Stephen Sondheim said so, and he wouldn't tell fibs. No, once I found what it is, then when I'll write after dinner, and then I'll write the next day from about 11:30 or 1 till 3:30, and I've remembered what the click is.
Right. Fascinating. Now, when you were talking to that beautiful young lady who was talking about your book, you said something I thought was very interesting about your soul. It's in the seasons, and the season that you're in now is winter, Mel.
Yeah.
Explain to my listeners and to me what you mean by that.
Well, as I said, the soul has its seasons. Well, so does life. Because we have good days, bad days. And I've always been enthusiastically trying to, in my career in teaching, to support religious ideas that have struck me as in every way good and well worth exploring. Sometimes, so you might call that summer, you might call it spring, but autumn sometimes, as you get a bit older, you get rather annoyed, particularly with administrivia and with structures. And winter is when suddenly a whole lot more negative concepts arrive, and rather than push them off, I entertain them, which I think is a theological term, because I don't think you can have intelligent faith unless you have intellectual honesty. Mm-hmm. So just at the moment, I find the amount of evil in the world so utterly distressing, not just on a general level. I mean, it occurred to me, maybe it's in the book, I don't know. I haven't read my book for some time, but probably for most of the history of the world, 80% of people have led dreadful lives of oppression. And suddenly that hits you. Well, it certainly hit me, and I find myself questioning. And Pope Francis said something really interesting. I subscribe to the tablet, so I love reading what he says. I also love reading what the various contributors say there. But he said, don't dismiss Satan. He is roaming the world. Well, I don't accept, or I don't find myself believing that there is something called Satan, but I certainly believe there is a hideous evil force in the world, and call it Satan, call it evil. But the amount of suffering in the world is, to me at the moment, very problematic. And then to give you one example, because anyone can rabbit on with generalities, every morning when I wake up, I pray for Alexei Navalny in a Soviet jail put there by that animal Putin. I mean, the Russian legal system is, you couldn't say a joke. It's blasphemous. It's deeply evil. And he's living, because he's an opponent, he is, for 90 years, he's been condemned to solitary confinement, no hot water, no contact, no books, and that is an example of one of the things I find at the moment. I cannot come to terms with that evil, although I accept that the force of that evil is so destructive, and he's just one person.
Sure.
So I hope that's something of an answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we agree on that. It's absolutely dreadful. You just got to watch the news, and at every turn, it's shocking. But you've taken a lighter approach in this way you've written the diaries and the book, haven't you? You've intentionally highlighted certain things by taking a very light touch on things.
Well, young Craig, you will recall that when you were in year 7 or whatever it was called then, I was writing for the Mavis Bramston show, and that satiric strain in my character and such skill as I have is something I greatly enjoy. And I also like the idea of a pope who can sling off at a whole lot of things. So there's a bit of me in that part of him, I think. But yeah, there's a lot of comedy, and also of the pope saying about religious things, who the hell invented this rubbish? It's nonsense. And there are some good examples. I like the one about the very holy lady who could travel across the water as if with the wind behind her all around the world. And I've got the Pope saying, well, great idea, but I wonder who ever met her. So, and he says a few other things as well. So, yeah, that.
Look, do you see this as a movie or a Netflix series, maybe?
Oh, wouldn't that be lovely? I don't go to many movies. Not that I don't like them, but I've never been able to write a screenplay. I can write sketches and so forth, and songs. There is enough drama and enough shock in it for that to be the case. But it would need, I'd be happy to advise on it, but it would need a really good writer to say, well, look, these are the high points now. We have to show them. But I'll tell you what, it'll have some pretty good frocks. The Vatican doesn't do restraint. Men in frocks.
Men in frocks. Yeah, and I don't know whether we've given it a strong enough flavour for just how wicked this is. Oh, it is
wicked.
It is wicked.
Craig.
Shocking.
Oh. I mean, innocent little me. Oh, honestly, what are the your Northern Beaches public going to think?
Well, some would say, Mel, that you've, after years at August School, St. Ignatius, that you've turned your back on the whole scenario of...
Well, whoever that someone is completely wrong. If you mean I am intellectually questing and honest, well, you'd be right there again.
Fantastic, Mel. Look, it's been an absolute pleasure. When half an hour has absolutely flown. I hope you come out of winter, Mel, and back to me in summer soon.
I trust in the seasons, and I don't think I control them, but when you're on a journey, you keep walking.
Okay, so let's talk about it again. I Confess, Diary of an Australian Pope, Melvyn Morrow, Melvyn.
Yeah,
so many times I've got that wrong.
The Y is...
The Y is.
Talk about being up yourself. But anyway, it sounds like a writer's name. And yes, and it's on Amazon.com and Amazon.com.au. I think it's slightly cheaper. And they're very good, actually. When you order it, you get it in about 2 or 3 days, which astonishes me.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I'm getting it for Christmas. That's my excuse for not having read it right now.
Well, I look forward to our having dinner once you've read it. And I have a lot of other people might buy it for friends at Christmas as well. I can guarantee that it won't be one of those books where you go, oh, I feel I've got to keep going. Anyway, people can get in touch with me and tell me what they think.
Absolutely. That'd be fantastic. And I wish you all the best for this Christmas, Mel, and your extended family. And it's always a pleasure to sit with you and chat to you. Thank you very much for joining the program.
And warmest Christmas regards to everyone on the Northern Beaches. I've enjoyed this vastly, and I look forward to the next time we're talking.
Great. Thank you, Mel.